Liebe Freunde von Yad Vashem, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, dear friends and Shalom Chaverim. Es ist mir eine Freude, Sie heute begrüßen zu dürfen. Ich heiße Ruth Orr und ich bin zuständig für die Arbeit von Yad Vashem in den deutschsprachigen Ländern. Da dieses Event auf Englisch ist, werde ich auch weiter auf Englisch sprechen. The first thing I want to say is welcome. It's great to have you with us and so many people with us. I think it's our largest audience ever. It's going to be a short session and we have a lot to get through. It's the third Yad Vashem talk and it seems that with each session our audiences get bigger and I believe we get better as well. So we're very excited about today. Our idea with this series is to offer our members of the Freundeskreis of Yad Vashem an insight into the complex issues and challenges that Yad Vashem faces, whether it is in the field of international diplomacy, dealing with the media, or in this case, what it means to manage and safeguard the world's largest Holocaust archive. As you all know, keeping the memory of the Holocaust alive is no easy task, and the existence of an institution like Yad Vashem cannot be taken for granted. If you're not already a member, please consider becoming one. It's just a click away. Now, it's a huge pleasure for me to hand over to Kai Diekmann, the chair of the German Friends of Yad Vashem. Kai's wide-ranging work with Yad Vashem spans over a decade. I don't think there is a single person who has done more to strengthen the relationship between Germany and Yad Vashem than you, Kai. And I know that the colleagues here on the call with us share my gratitude for everything that you do. And finally, I would like to thank you, dear Haim, for agreeing to take us on a short tour behind the scenes of the fascinating and complex world of the Yad Vashem archives. I wish you all a stimulating hour, and over to you, Kai.
Thank you very much, Ruth, for your warm words. I'm not sure if this session is going to get any better with me, but at least I try to do my very best, and it's really an honor to have Haim today in our Zoom meeting, and I really love the idea of these Zoom meetings. Ruth, that was fantastic to create something like this. Thank you so much to you. Yeah, it's great to have you all here in this session, and I'm really excited to have Haim with us. I do know Haim, who is the director of the Yad Vashem archives since over a decade. And actually, he was the first guy I ever met with Yad Vashem. This was in the year 2008, when I was still editor-in-chief of Bild. And at that time, reporters of our newspaper had discovered the only existing blueprints of Auschwitz. And at that time, I was totally convinced that these important documents should never vanish somewhere at the Bundesarchiv, but that they had to be displayed and that they had to be going to Yad Vashem. So I tried to get into contact with Yad Vashem a couple of times, writing emails, but never got an answer. And then I kind of gave up. And one day I got a call from somebody saying, my name is Haim Gertner, and I'm the director of the Yad Vashem archives, and I'm in Frankfurt right now. And I saw your email and I thought I probably come by. And so he came to my place, took a look at the blueprints of Auschwitz. At that time, we already knew they were original. They were the only existing ones. And this was the beginning of a great cooperation. And today, I can say of a great friendship, cooperation with Yad Vashem, and a great personal friendship with Haim Gertner himself. And actually, I have to tell you as well that right now, Haim is still the director of the Yad Vashem archives, but he will do a different job in a short time. He has been promoted and he will take over as director for the international relations of Yad Vashem, and so will be in touch with us in Germany even more than he is right now. And so I'm happy that I know that we will work for the next years together as well. I don't really know, Haim, if you are really happy, because I think whenever I saw you in the archive, it's one of the most interesting, challenging things you actually can do in Yad Vashem, being the director of the archive. And whenever I saw you over there, I had the impression this is something you do with so much passion, it is part of your life, that I actually can't imagine you doing a different job than doing this great work in the archives behind the scenes. Please.
Good evening. Thank you, Kai, for the presentation. I will probably relate to our first meeting later on during my presentation. I am not sitting in the archives now, but at home, as we at Yad Vashem are dividing our labor between home and work as the rest of the world now. So I'll try to share with you from the far what we do on a daily basis and what stands behind it. And I'll do it through, I think, few examples. But please let me share with you my experience while visiting Berlin, and I'm doing it quite frequently. So whenever I'm in Berlin, this is where I go, among other things. It is Große Hamburger Straße. It's in the old Jewish quarter of Berlin, you know. It's an old apartment building that was destroyed in an aerial bombing in February '45. The building was renovated, and today has an appearance of a normal building with the 3 entrances. But the middle entrance, as you can see, is actually empty. It's an empty space. The French artist Christian Boltanski and his students decided to create a research in the Berlin Municipal Archives and discovered that mostly Jews had lived in this building. Boltanski mounted placards, you saw them on the walls over there, on the 2 empty walls. The placards look like enlarged museum labels containing the names and the professions of the former residents in this building, as well as dates. The later date displayed is usually the date of death, which is, as you can see, 1942 or 1943. Whenever I'm there, I'm visiting the monument because for me, it is a meaningful place of commemoration, precisely because of the void. Suddenly, in my imagination, the entire street, Berlin, Germany, actually all of Europe, change their appearance and in my imagination become a sea of empty holes. The lack of material, I mean, the fact that we have only a wall and a placard and a name is working on my imagination and my feelings in a most incredible, effective way. The void created by the annihilations of the Jews during the Shoah is presented here in a very moving way. Actually, Yad Vashem was established to deal exactly with this void and to commemorate the loss in a way that is becoming meaningful for each one of the Jewish victims of the Holocaust and for us who are looking back, trying to commemorate them. Trying to give them back their faces and identity. Exactly as the name Yad Vashem implies. Yad Vashem means in Hebrew, a memorial and a name. So in Yad Vashem, we collect every item and every name. And here is an example. When the war broke out, Tzipora and Dov Cohen were a young couple who had already experienced the loss of one child during childbirth. With the German invasion of Lithuania, they unsuccessfully flee to the Soviet Union. They returned to their home in Kovno, Kaunas, and later were interned in the Kovno ghetto. Approximately half a year later, on 1942, January 18, 1942, Tzipora gave birth to a daughter who, this is the birth certificate that they purchased, that they created there in the ghetto. At the end of November 1943, the couple was transferred to a forced labor war camp whose inmates worked in an airport in very difficult conditions. So during the day, the men and women would go off to work in this forced labor camp, and only the children would remain in the camp with a group of adults. On March 27, trucks arrived in the camp. The adults were taken out through a different gate than the usual one, so they would not see the trucks. And actually, they didn't see the deportation. So when the adults returned at the end of the day, they actually discovered that there was a tragedy for them, the end of the world. No children remained in the camp. This terrible event was seared into the consciousness of the inmates, and since then they called it the children's action, the children's action. Dov and Tzipora went to their daughter's bed, where they found only two items: the gloves that Tzipora had prepared for Hinda, and one of Hinda's shoes. Dov inscribed the date on the other side of the shoe and swore to save this shoe forever. Suddenly, or at the end actually, they survived. Dov and Tzipora gave birth to another daughter after the war, and made an aliyah, immigrated to Israel later on. Dov and Tzipora requested from their family in their will to give their daughter's items to Yad Vashem. And when they passed away, their granddaughter gave the items of Hinda Cohen, who was murdered at Auschwitz, to Yad Vashem. We do not have any photo of Hinda. The parents filled out this page of testimony, but we don't have any photo of Hinda. But we have an artifact, and we have the story. So those small pieces of memory are telling a human story of a 2.5 years old kid who was not, I mean, in this case, we had someone that could tell us that behind each item in our collection,
We are losing you.
Ruth?
Ruth?
Yeah, you're frozen.
Ruth, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just Haim. Let's wait for 2 minutes. I hope he will come back.
Haim?
I'll give him a call.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
I hear you. Okay.
What was the last slide? What was the last slide that you hear? Sorry for that.
Slide number 12.
Okay. This one.
No, the one before.
The one before.
One before. The page of testimony of Hinda.
This one.
That one.
This one.
No, one. No. No,
you're going.
Other direction, Haim. What? No. Back, please.
This one.
This one.
This one.
That's it.
Sorry, I have problems. It happened to be with my Wi-Fi. Sorry.
I think we've got another frozen again.
Haim.
Sorry.
Okay, who is going to call Haim and tell him we've lost him?
I'm going to call him.
I'm here again.
I'm back.
Haim, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, I'll try to share again.
If it doesn't work, you might need to
Okay.
put out the slides.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll go back to Dov and Zipporah's story. As I said, we don't, in the case of Hinda, we do not have a photo of Hinda. We have this page of testimony that Hinda's parents, Dov and Zipporah, filled out in order to commemorate Zipporah. But the only thing that we have is this. It's an item. It's a shoe, an artifact that tells her story. So behind each one of the items in Yad Vashem, there is a human being. There is a story of a Jewish victim. So we actually have a huge puzzle in front of us every day when we come to work. The mission was there actually from the very beginning when Yad Vashem was established. Yad Vashem was established in 1946 and then was reestablished after the establishment of the new state of Israel in 48. In 53, the Yad Vashem law was enacted, and there, almost in the first line, you see this sentence. You see the sentence, you see the mission actually. Yad Vashem shall be competent to collect, research, and publish all testimony on the Shoah. And for me, the most important word here is all. The understanding already there was that because the Nazis erased the Jewish memory, then the mission will have to be holistic. In order to reconstruct histories of human beings, of a community, then you have to be holistic in your approach and to collect everything. So this is what Yad Vashem had done from day one. This is from the first days of the Yad Vashem archives. They collected documents, testimonies, artwork. Actually, what I'm doing today at Yad Vashem is a continuation of what the founders had done, but we do it massively, and we do it in ways that haven't been there 70 or 60 years ago. So we do it massively in those days with the most advanced technology. What we do in order to collect is working mainly by 3 channels. One channel is to interview Holocaust survivors. Until the beginning of COVID-19, we did it quite massively. Since then, almost nothing. We hope to go back to that soon. The other thing that we are doing is that we are mapping and scanning millions of documents every year worldwide. I'm talking about between 5 to 15 million pages of documents every year in dozens of places, actually close to 40 institutions a year. This is really massive. And the third one is to collect original items, documents, photos, artifacts, art, everywhere in Israel and abroad. And we are collecting tens of thousands of them every year with its context, the context. So I would like to share with you 2 examples of what we do. And by that, maybe to explain a bit how does it work and what do we benefit from that. Today, we have the largest collection, actually all those years, we have the largest collection of Holocaust-related material. Today, our collections are, this is the size of the collection, more than 270 million pages of documents and all the rest. Kai, you mentioned before, our first talk at 2008, and actually what you told me during this talk, I mean, I saw an advertisement or an article in a German newspaper saying that you found the blueprints of Auschwitz. And actually, when I came to Frankfurt and later on to Berlin, I found those blueprints. And this is the blueprint of Birkenau, Auschwitz II. This is the first one. And you have the layout as it seems today for those who are visiting Birkenau, at least the part that was built. for me, the one interesting side of the document was the other side, because there you could see the whole chain of order. And here in green, you see up there, you see the signature of Himmler himself in green. Green means in German bureaucracy, even today, approved by the highest authority, by the minister. So it was approved by Himmler. This is why, of course, it is extremely important to have such a document, because this is the proof of the process of the creation of the murder. When it came to Yad Vashem, one of my researchers, one of the experts, the director of the photo archive, told me, well, I think we have also an album, a huge album with more than 400 photos that the same department in Auschwitz created, the Department of Building, that documented, not only on paper, but in photo, the process of building. And there he found this. This is exactly the team that had created the blueprint. So you see the blueprints over there on the tables. For me, the photo was extremely important. When I saw it, I said to myself something that I knew years before, but you know, this is this is very, very vivid when you see it. That in order to take part in a murder, you don't have to be a murderer. You may be only an architect or an engineer. So the process here of the creation of the murder site is being showed from such an item that was done by the perpetrators. This is why this document that Kai brought to us was so important, and since then on appear in a lot of exhibitions that we have. But this is only one side. It is not enough to use, as you probably all aware, it is not enough to tell the story of the Holocaust only through this majority of documents that usually you have in Europe or elsewhere in the world. I mean, the documents that were done by the perpetrators. Because Auschwitz captured, imprisoned human beings. So you can't learn about the fate of Jews only as prisoners, as numbers, as Häftling Nummer. So this is why Yad Vashem is working very hard to collect documents and items that tells the story from the perspective of the victims, of the Jews as human beings. We call them victim sources, usually. So this is one of them. And it is connected to one of the families that were imprisoned and later on were murdered in Auschwitz. So from the other perspective, this is Esther Goldstein. When she was born in 1926 in Berlin, and she had a sister and a brother. And when she was 16, her parents gave her this book, this poesie book. I assume that part of you still have those books from childhood. I remember mine. So family members, friends inscribed messages to her, as usually done in those books. So she attached the photo of her father, and on the upper right you can see in a pencil she wrote Papa, and this is David, and her mother Blima is here. She gave her photo, and she wrote on the upper right side Mutti, Mom. Both were murdered. David was sent to Sachsenhausen in 1939, and from there was deported to Dachau, and Blima was sent to Auschwitz in March 1943. Friends wrote during the years. This is one of them. This is Bella Lazor, one of her best friends. And Bella wrote here, look on the date. It is September 15th, 1942. She wrote, I'm reading it in English translation, enjoy the beauty itself, love life, and don't be afraid of death. Believe in God and a better future. I mean, you have to be very optimistic when you are writing it in September 15th, 1942. A month later, Esther, this is almost the last written paper in this book, because a month later, Esther, the owner, Esther Goldstein, the owner of the book, was sent to Riga. And a few months later, in January 43, Bella, the one who appears here, was deported to Auschwitz. So both of them were murdered. What touched my heart most in this book was this page. And this page was written by another friend, Sonia Strengel. You see, and she's writing here, Berlin, January 12, 1937, from Golden School Times. This is what she writes here. And in the corners, you see around it in the corners, as usually done in such a book, she writes, "Vergiss mich nicht," don't forget me or forget me not. Sonia was also deported to Auschwitz in 1943. For me, those four very innocent words, and in this context, I mean, this is what they usually do. Don't forget me. This sentence or those words in the album become a moral imperative. Do not forget me. Do not forget us. So this is how a document, a regular simple document from the 30s and later on from the beginning of the 40s, become the only evidence actually for a family that was vanished. So how did we get it at all? I mean, every item that we have has a few stories. The story of the creation, the story of the arrival, and then the story of the person that it tells. So how did it arrive to us? Well, the album, along with other family documents, was kept by a neighbor, a German neighbor, and was given to Yad Vashem by Esther's sister. This is Esther's sister, Margot. Margot, today Herschenbaum, was sent in 1939, just before the war, to Australia as part of the Kindertransport, the organized rescue efforts of Jewish children between 38 and 40. And she is actually, because of that, the sole survivor of her immediate family. Later on, she immigrated, she made an aliyah, she came to Israel, became a nurse. And in 1999, she filled out a page of testimony commemorating her family murdered in the Holocaust, and including, of course, her sister Estelle. So this is what we had from 1999. It took her 15 more years to decide to part with the book and a few other documents and to donate it to Yad Vashem. So this is her and her son behind her. And she was very, very glad to hear that we created, that Iris Rosenberg, the director of our communication division, who is also participating here in the event now, and her team created it as an online exhibition. So everyone may use it in Hebrew, English, German, and other languages. Each one of the pages that we have represent a human being. And this is why we have to collect this huge puzzle of black holes into one place and to give its meaning, give to it meaning. I'd like to end this part of the presentation with the last example, which is connected to this person. His name is Haim Gertner. Shaya, who is here, maybe knows him. I mean, Haim Gertner is living in Kibbutz Saad in the south, which is the kibbutz of my wife, Naama. He is the neighbor of my wife's parents, my wife's family. So I know him for years. Actually, he is the father, one of his sons is a good friend of mine. He's standing on the right side. For years, I had no clue that he is a Holocaust survivor. Why should I think that he is a Holocaust survivor? I mean, he is a kibbutznik. He speaks fluent Hebrew. I mean, for me, I didn't ask. So for me, he was a sabra, a rough, very eloquent sabra. But later on, when he was chosen to be a person who is lighting the torch at Yad Vashem in the Holocaust Memorial Day in Yom HaShoah, I realized that he has a story and that he is a Holocaust survivor. And then he called me and he told me, I'm interested in my story. I took my kids to the March of the Living, a personal one, to a family journey back in Hungary. He was born in Hungary. But I have a lot of things that I don't know yet. So may you please, when I was taken about myself. Now, in the last 12 years, we conducted a huge project in Hungary, specifically in Hungary, because we had only 40% of the names of the victims there. So we wanted to have as much as we can documents from all over Hungary. So we mapped systematically each one of the important archives in Hungary, and we mapped 25 million pages of documents, copied 10% of them, so 2.5 million pages. And from that, by a very sophisticated way, we constructed the names of the other half of the unknown names of victims. Today, we know 80% of the names. And not only the names, but also histories. I mean, few items on each one. So this is what we found about his father. This is his father card. His father was forced to work in a forced labor camp in Austria, in Sachendorf, when he was murdered in 1943. So this is his personal card with the Hungarian name of the father. And then we found the name of him when he was liberated and was adopted by his aunt. And the name Gruber, the name of the aunt, was given to him. So his name then was Tibor Gruber. This is him. I showed it to him. He was very, very fascinated. He was very, very excited. And then the last page that I showed him was this. This was the page from 1941 census, when they listed not only the names, but the property of the family. So I showed him the list. I saw there that they had this and that two-room apartment in Budapest, that his father worked here and there, that they had almost nothing because they took everything from them. They were very poor. He looked on the page and he told me, you are looking on the wrong place on the page. You are looking on the wrong place. This is what interests me on the lower right side, the signature of my father. I have nothing from my father except of the signature. So this is the only thing that you brought me in copy, in black and white, from my father. Thank you very much. I mean, he was, of course, very, very excited. And then he told me, now I have something from my father, but you have another challenge. Now you have to find something left over from my mom, because from her, I even don't have a signature. So what we do is relevant to people now. So what Yad Vashem is doing matters in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Haim, for that impressive telling about your work and what you're doing for Yad Vashem. I have been listening so many times to you, but every time again, it is extremely moving. It is extremely impressing. Haim, once again, thank you so much for that great, moving presentation of your work. Thank you so much for sharing these insights behind the scenes, and thank you so much for being with us. We promise to keep it to 1 hour. I would like to thank all the audience for sharing time with us and for listening to Haim. And I'm already looking forward to our next session. And Ruth, when will this be?
On the 11th of November with Iris Rosenberg.
That is great, and I'm already looking forward to November 11th. Now, everybody, please stay safe, please stay healthy, and have a lovely evening. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.